Alright, it's showtime. So welcome to the Unreal Engine 4 tutorial. This is a... One second. I am recording. I'm recording. Welcome to the Unreal Engine 4 quick and dirty tutorial. We're throwing stuff at the wall, you being the wall, and we're basically going to see what sticks. So, I guess a quick thing about Unreal Engine. It's a game engine. It's the best engine, period. There are no exceptions. Using Unity is heretical. We believe it's beginner friendly. So if you're an artist, it's easy to just hop in and make art. And the engine has a lot less tweaking to do out of the box than Unity can, in my experience. Yes, the tutorial is indeed being recorded on my computer through OBS. Yes, so you don't need to necessarily program. So if you're an artist, you don't need to program. If you're a programmer, you're tired of programming in your programming classes, or you just don't want to program, we have node-based programming languages, scripted stuff, visual scripting. Think like if you know what Scratch is or Snap, but less bad, actually useful. But if you are a programmer, this engine is very easy to get used to because everything is object-oriented. It's all class-based. So say we have in blueprints, everything in the engine is made up of something called an object. Like there's a cube over there, that's an object. There's a NPC walking around, that's an object. Well, at the head of it, it's an object. But if we actually want to make the character, we need to go from the actor class, and then we have the character as they derive. Actor is a child class of object. Character is a child class of actor, and so on. And so if you want to make a character, you'll make a child class of character, and then you'll have your stuff. Now, you spent a lot of time in CS, maybe. So you took 122, you took 213. You don't want to forget those C skills? No problem. Unreal Engine is, you can also use C++. It's C, but plus, incremented. And maybe some of your old code that you used in your C classes can also be reused if you find a place that they need to be used at. So here are some games made in Unreal. The right one was made in Unreal, the left one was not. So know your Unreal games. And then we have the more modern games, Rocket League, Bioshock series, Ruiner, Robo Recall, Fortnite. The System Shock
Brother Bear.
Yes.
The best game.
The best game in Unreal Engine. So we have some pretty good games that were made in this engine. And here's us that are being made in Unreal Engine. So we got Fantastical Delights last year, Slope Crusher last year, Blade this year, this semester. Joy says yeah. Also, our first Unreal Engine game was Dissonance by Jan, who is now working at Epic. Alright, let me stop sharing and give it over to Woody.
Oh, Matthew, did you want to do any GitHub at all, or are we saving that for later?
Alright, GitHub. So, I want to teach you guys how to use GitHub with Unreal Engine, because normally we have a lot of collab stuff in Unity. We don't want to do that stuff here. We want to do, we're going to be using GitHub. So what you need to do is go to Git, just type in Git download, and I'll copy the link right here into the Unreal tutorial. You want to download Git. Git is the source control thing that GitHub is using. And speaking of, so you want to download this for your respective computer, operating system, and then you want to install it as it says so. And I suggest you leave the installation in the default directory. Next, you want to go download GitHub Desktop. That's here. So you download it for your operating system. Once that's all done, you want to go open up your GitHub Desktop and you want to sign in. Yes, let me put in the GitHub Desktop address for you guys. Also, if there's anything you don't understand, or if you have any questions, don't be shy. Just shout it at us. Alright. So then you want to go, so assuming you have Unreal Engine and everything else installed, you want to go open up the editor. And if this is your first time using Unreal Engine, you won't see any of this stuff, but me, being this is not my first time, I have stuff here, but you can ignore that. So, you would like to make a new project, presumably a games project. So you'll double click that, now you're here. You have a bunch of templates that you can work with. So you've got first person, you've got a virtual reality template, which I'm a fan of. We got an AR template, which I haven't actually used before, and third person template as well. So you're going to go click this third person, and you're going to click next because we're going to be using the third person template. This is going to be a blueprint project. We don't need the maximum quality, especially since I'm streaming. I'm going to try and get my hardware focused on the streaming part, not the rendering part. We don't need ray tracing. We don't need starter content, but if you want starter content, you can include this. This is basically gives you a bunch of materials and textures and models to work with. It's going to be desktop and console. And you're going to go, if you want, you can put this in somewhere in one of your directories. So I'm going to put this in the, not in my GCS Blade folder, but instead of my GCS tutorial folder. So hopefully they'll automatically make one, and then we'll call it tutorial project. Really Git project, because I'm teaching you guys how to do GitHub for now. Okay, so we're going to create the project. Load real quick. Ta-da! Third person example map right up here. Now, for the moment, do not worry about everything you see here. All you need to care about right now, since we're setting up source control, is go click this button here. Let's connect to source control. You're going to go down here to your provider. We're using Git. You want to give it the location of where it is. Basically, by default, it's here on Windows. If you're a Mac, I'm not sure what the default is, but it's where you installed it. You don't necessarily need to deal with any of these stuff. I suggest you add a Git attributes file to enable Git LFS. Git LFS sounds scary, but it's not. So Git LFS, okay. The way GitHub Desktop works is like this. You put all your stuff into source control. So the Git keeps track of your progress. But what if you're an artist and you're putting in 4K textures? Now 4K textures aren't small. So what Git LFS does is allows us to upload these textures and not have GitHub be upset at us. So we would add a Git attributes file. And,
how did you get to the source control page?
What?
How did you get to the source control window?
Right here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, but like if I'm going too fast, just say so. So this is your README. We'll keep this the same for now. Your first time, this should ask you to just log in, I think. And you're gonna go click accept settings. No, you're gonna click initialize project with Git. So you're gonna initialize it. It's gonna do something like that. You can think for a little bit. All right, we now have Git. So we're gonna accept settings. We're done. So now we're gonna go into GitHub Desktop and going to click add local repository because this saves the local repository. And we need to make this onto the internet. So I'm going to go to our GCS tutorial, click this, add repository. You don't want to leave here. You want to go here. But I guess if you click this, you're fine. Because we're only interested in Git project, and then we add the repository. Git LFS must be initialized, so we initialize it. All right. Now we want to put this on GitHub website. We can do so. We publish the repository. So you know if you're working with more than yourself, or even if you're working with yourself, that's okay. So let's publish this. This is a GitHub tutorial for the Unreal Engine tutorial. I'll keep the code private because there's nothing here for you guys. And we're going to publish it. It might take a couple seconds. So right now we're pushing everything to GitHub right now. It's looking at everything and it's uploading. And that's all you need to know. Once that's done, this button is going to say fetch from origin. But if there are no changes, it's going to ask you to, if there are changes, however, it's going to either ask you to pull or push. So what this means is that, say you make a change here. Well, after we're done. It's almost done. I hope. Right, it's almost done. Alright, groovy. So now it says fetch origin. Just refreshing. Okay, but let's say we make a change. I don't know. Let's us just clear this away. Don't worry what I'm doing, it doesn't matter. I'm just proving to you that if we make a change, we make a change by submitting to source control. It's going to check what we changed. We changed third person example map, which is where we are now. It's the level we're in. So we're going to say remove skeletal mesh from person in third person example map. We'll submit it, and now you're done. But now it's backed up to locally on GitHub, on Git. But now you want to bring it to GitHub. So what you do is you push it like that. Now it's going to push it. And then after that, it's going to say, okay, we're done. You don't necessarily need to use the dot attributes because it's going to make uploading a lot slower, but it's going to upload guaranteed. Because normally uploading is a lot faster if you don't use LFS. And that's it. That's GitHub. So now you could work with multiple people on a project, easy, as long as you don't work in the same map. For the love of God, do not work in the same map. You're going to have a lot of problems if you work in the same map. So if you're working on multiple features, just like do yourselves a favor, duplicate the map and just say, okay, I'm going to be working in this map, Matthew map. And that is it. So now we're going to do our work here, and that's it. Alright, so that's the extent of this GitHub tutorial. Now I'm going to hand the baton over to Woody, and he'll show you the ropes.
Sweet. Sorry, give me just a second to share. All right, can everyone see this?
Yeah.
Sweet. All right, so jumping back here, kind of just to the basics of the game. So once you've gotten your project open, you should be able to see a screen that looks just about like this, right? So the first thing to look at is that there's kind of all these windows going on, right? And so if we click on the top of one of these windows, you can see that you can pick it up and drag it around, right? And then when you move it over other windows, you get these little boxes. So this kind of lets you just edit this and move things around to fit however you work best, right? And just about all of these windows can move, and if you drag them in the middle here, they'll detach. Let me reattach that. Something else you can do is also resize things. So you can move these around to kind of just make this however you like it. If in the event that you mess everything up and it looks horrible and you want it back to normal, you can go over here to Window, go to Load Layout, and then click the default editor layout. That'll reset everything and get it back. Wait, did that kill the stream? Oh, that killed the stream. Hang on. There we go. That should be back. Okay, so what are all these windows doing? The first and most important window is this big window in the middle. This is kind of your view into your level. So it kind of shows you everything and all of their like relative positions and kind of what's going on. So the first thing you can do is that if you move and you click with either of the buttons, you'll see that we highlight some objects, right? If we click and then hold, you'll see that we can look around. While you're looking around, you can press W, S, A, D, and then Q and E to move around. This is kind of standard first-person controls. You are also able to, as you're moving, if you want to go faster, you can scroll up on the mouse wheel and you'll speed up, and you can scroll down on the mouse wheel and you'll slow down. And then that'll reset, or that won't reset actually. So it'll keep the same speed, whatever you set it at. So the second panel is the world outliner up here. And this one is kind of going to be all of the objects that are in your level. So at the top, we can see that there's the level itself, and then you've got kind of these subfolders and everything in them. You can see that when we click on one of these objects, that object highlights in the world, and then also vice versa. When I click on an object in the world, we see it pop up in the world outliner. Under the world outliner is the details panel. And so this one is kind of going to give you object you have selected, right? So I will, for example, click on the third person character, right? And so we see that the details pops up, his name shows up over here, and we have all these different options. The first thing is that this character is a blueprint and has a bunch of sub-objects inside of it, right? If we want to click on those, we can see that down here stuff is changing. So this is kind of like our object and the things inside of it, and then these are the components on those particular objects. So in Unreal, components kind of define a lot of behavior. So for example, I can click on the camera and we'll see that I have this camera object, right? Looking at its components, I can change things and move things around. So this is how a lot of, once you have scripts and blueprints built, you can kind of just edit those values in the editor without having to go in and change things in code. So I'll click on, say, the camera boom. We have this target arm length, and if I move it forward and back, we'll see that the camera kind of moves around and gets farther and closer. So next up is the content browser. So when you were making your project, you probably noticed that Unreal asks for a place to save things. And when Unreal does a project, it isn't just doing like one big gigantic file. Oh, sorry, that didn't kill it, did it? Okay. It's not doing one big gigantic file with everything in it. It's actually building stuff into your file system. So I can right click on here. Oh, and let me right click on one of these. Yeah. And I can go to Show and Explore. You probably can't see that because Discord won't let you see it, but if you do that, it'll actually pull up this file in your file system. So there's really great options, which Joyce will cover in a minute, about kind of how to import things and add things into the engine. So don't recommend just drag and dropping stuff in, but if you want to, you're able to just pull things straight into your file system without having to touch the engine at all. And you're also able to find files. If something is pesky and isn't deleting, you can kind of just go in and grab it. All right, up next is the Place Actors window. So you can drag and drop things from your content browser in to add them to the scene, but there's also all these pre-made defaults from Epic. So for example, if I want to add a sphere, I can go to Basic, click on a sphere, and then drag and drop it in, and you'll see it pops up in the scene. So there's lots and lots of good stuff here, all sorts of basic primitives, objects, lighting, fog, and all that kind of stuff. right, last little window up here is this panel. And let me expand it out so you can see everything. So the first, yep. Oh, is there a question?
No, someone's mic just accidentally unmuted.
Oh, okay. Yeah, feel free to interrupt if you guys have any questions. All right, so the most important button on this bar is the Save Current button. Save all the time, do it often. It's just good practice. You can also do Control S, and that will also save. The second most important button is the Play button. So if you click on the Play button, this scene view changes into an actual play mode. So you see I can run around, I can jump. This is just how you test your game. Of course, you may not want to play explicitly like in this little window. Oh, that's really fast. So if you click on this drop down to the side, there's all these other different options. So you can make it standalone, you can run the game without actually playing it, you can choose how to spawn the player and all that kind of stuff. All right. So the third most important button is the Settings button. So right now we're going to jump into Settings. We're going to fix a couple default things that you may have if you have an older version of the engine, and then also talk about input. So first, we want to go to Settings and go to Project Settings. That's going to pull up this window. We want to search for Auto Exposure in this panel. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Let me try that. Oh, I see. Oh, this is slick. I didn't know Discord could do just one window. That's awesome. Okay, is this better? Matthew, did that fix it? Sweet. All right. You want to look for auto exposure in your project settings, and if it's on, turn it off. It is now off by default in the newest version of the engine, but it is super, super annoying if it's on. So it'll just make your lighting look weird and make the screen go black and then white and all sorts of crazy stuff. So just turn that off if you have it on. Cool. The next setting we want to look at is if you look over, or there's a bajillion different settings, we want to go to Engine and Input. So the way Unreal does input is it's going to have these things called axes, right? And the way an input axis works is you kind of define an axis, and then you define all the different buttons that are going to affect that axis, right? So for example, if we look at the move forward axis, we have all these different buttons that are going to change its value, right? So W, S, up and down. And so this kind of makes sense. If you press W, you want that axis to increase in value, right? Later on in code, we'll see that we can check if that's like greater than 0. And if it is, move forward. Or if it's less than 0, move backwards. Something important is that these are the sum of all of their axes, right? So if you press both forwards and backwards, the move forward axis is actually going to end up being 0 because this one adds a scale of 1 and this one subtracts a scale of 1. So it just evens out. To create new axes, you can just click this little button to add an axis mapping. Uh-oh. Oh, I think I just added a bunch. Okay. Then you can name it whatever you want. So I'll just name mine like pay respects. Then you can click the button beside the axis to add new keys. So I'll add a new key. I want a keyboard, and I'll just pick F. Now you can press F and pay respects. Adding inputs is going to be super helpful later on. How we can use those in. Oh, Matthew, am I covering levels too? I think I am. I'll just cover. Yeah, why not? All right, so I'm going to cover game mode. So maps will do that. So like we saw in the world outliner, this is all kind of wrapped up in a map right now, right? So if I want to make a new map, what I can do is I can right-click in the content browser, and this is going to give me all the different things I can. If you look over here under Create Basic Asset, there's this orange one that's labeled Level. And so this is kind of just going to give us a new bundle of things in a level. So I'll just name this like example level. Oh, and you can't have spaces. To enter a level, you can just double click on it in the content browser. save what you've got, and it'll pop up. This is a bad example because there is absolutely nothing. So it ends up just being completely blank. But going back to another level, oh, that one is also empty. There we go, third person example map. And this will take us back to a level that actually has stuff we can see. All right, the other thing is we can add new game modes. So I'll go back to my main folder, and I can right click, and I believe it is create basic asset, and you want to create a blueprint class. And Matthew will talk more about blueprint classes here in a minute. We can select game mode base, and this will let us make a different game mode. So game modes kind of define a lot of the basic stuff of your game. So things like what kind of character are you using? How is it being controlled? What is the main level like? That kind of stuff. So I'll just call it example game mode BP. So if you double click, you can open that up, new window. If you don't like it having it in a separate, or don't like having it in a separate window, you can dock this up at the top and you kind of join it up. And then when we look over here, we can see the main part is these classes. This kind of defines our game session, our state, and then what our player controller and our player both are. So the default pawn, and then also what kind of HUD we spawn to pair with the player. Sweet, and that is the basics of making it. Oh, change these. You can search for other things of this type to grab them. So you see, there's a bunch of different player controller classes, and so I can click one of these, or when I make my own, go up here to change it to the default. And then you can change these to edit them to whatever fits your game best. All right, so I believe that is the basics of the UI and moving. Pass it off. Joyce next.
Wait, Woody, are you going to show them the levels, switching levels and modes? Like the project settings for levels as well?
Oh.
Just default level, yeah.
Yeah. Wait, where is that at? Maps and modes. That makes a lot more sense. Right here, okay. Yeah, so this will let you select the default maps, and then also you can select whatever game. So if you make these custom, you can find them in here and add them. There's lots and lots of other options too. Sweet, all right, with that, I think that is it.
Okay, hello. I know it looks like it's Matthew, but it's actually me, because my computer can't handle streaming Unreal and streaming and Unreal at the same time. Can everyone hear me? Give me like some response.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yep. Just go to screen.
Wait, shouldn't I do this?
I have 2 monitors.
All right. Matthew has 3 monitors. We're figuring out which one to share.
Go here. And go here.
Yay, okay. Everyone can see the screen now. So, cool. Alright, now we're in our level. And, so what I'll be teaching you guys is how to import things and how to import objects and materials into your level. So, right now we look at our level, it's kind of empty. Maybe we don't like that. And maybe we want some things in there. So, okay. Now, we have our, say we want to import this. This is a model of me and Matthew. Actually, none of us made this model.
We optimized it.
We optimized this model, and this was used in last year's VR game. So, you know, it's cool looking. Maybe we want that in our level. Okay. So how will we get things from, say, your folders into Unreal? Okay, the easiest way, let's actually make a new folder. Let's go to third person DP, new folder, right click, New folder. Let's call these. Dude, your keyboard, man. Sorry, Matthew also has these like freaking mechanical keyboards that I'm not used to. Let's just call. That's actually not. Okay, it's called materials now. Probably figure out a better name.
You showed him how to rename
Alright,
a folder.
Here, this is how you rename a folder. You right click, you go to rename. Let's call it fountain. Fountain, cool. So now, let's open our folder again. Say we want this inside our scene. Okay, how do we do this? Easiest way, drag it, drop it. And here you'll see like, oh, FBX import options. Most of the time you don't have to worry about these because Unreal is pretty smart. It knows what you're importing. The one thing that you might have to pay attention to is that here, first thing, when you look inside materials, it says material import method. The default is set to create new materials, but since we will be creating our own materials later, I will select do not create materials. Yeah, that's fine. And the other things you have to pay attention to is here, observe the skeletal mesh. Right now it's unchecked. That is because the mesh that we're importing, aka the fountain, is a static mesh. So what is a static mesh? A static mesh is anything that you don't expect to move inside the level. So for example, the stair theoretically will be a static mesh. But for things that will move, such as that, well, more specifically when we say move, we mean animated. So for example, your character that has bones inside them and they're gonna move around doing different things, different animations, then that will be a skeletal mesh. So if we're importing something like that, Unreal will be smart enough to be like, oh, check this for you, and there's some other things you need to do, but don't worry about that now. It's all good. So we click import. Cool, yay, we have our model inside Unreal now. Also, this will be a good time to save. This is one way to save. You can be like, oh, hey, save current level. That's great. But a better way to save is to use Control, Shift, and S, which will save everything. So the difference between those two is that, say, if I imported something into Unreal, but I haven't put it inside my current level, this will also save this inside the Unreal file. Well, alternatively, if I just click Save Current, it will not. But Unreal will ask you to, oh, do you want to save these when you exit the document? So that's fine, I guess. So, okay, now we have our object inside our content browser. How do we get it into our level? So it's also really easy. You drag it and you drop it in your level. It's easy as that. So now it's inside our level. Oh no.
Oh, it's that glitch.
Okay, shoot. Whoops.
The floor is lava.
The floor, bro. Okay. Alright, sorry, this is something we were testing out earlier. I'm gonna delete that now, and okay, now we're good. So cool, now it's inside our level. Look, we can stare up at it, but it looks very boring, right? It's just this like weird black texture. What if we wanted to look a little more interesting? Well, that's where materials come in. So what are materials? Materials are basically these, well, essentially pictures that you create to define how the surface of your model should behave when it, how it should respond to light, etc. essentially. So here we have our three materials that we've created for the specific model. You don't have to worry about how we created them. If that's something you're interested in, you can talk to us maybe. Alright, cool. So now we have these three. What these are, they are essentially just pictures. So now see if I open it, it's just a picture with some pink things. Alright. But so right now, if I try to drag in and drop it onto my model, it will not work, so I will not try that. What we need to do is that we need to create a material from these three maps. Oh, they're called maps, by the way. I think I forgot to mention that. These pictures are called maps. So how do we create a new material? Right click, you say create basic asset. One of them is material. So let's call this fountain material. Cool. Alright, open it up. Oh no, shoot. Fountain material.
It's like a tab, just.
It is a tab. Okay. Fountain material. Look inside, we see some things. We don't know what these are yet. We don't really care at this point. We'll get to that a little bit later, but let's save it. Oh, actually, let's turn this off. Do I want to turn this off? That's fine. Alright, so right now I have this, right? If I drag and drop my material onto my fountain, you see something has changed. It's like very subtle, but it looks a little different now. But however, this is still very not interesting. So what if we want to make it a little more interesting? So we have our 3 maps. We'll introduce what each one of those are later. Let's drag and drop them into this new window that we open that is describing our material. These are Matthew's computer is so much faster than mine. Mine takes like forever to load these little previews. Okay, so right now we loaded these 3 maps into our material editor. So first map, if we look at the name, this is a fountain UV default material base color. The emphasis here is on base color. So like its name, what it suggests is that this will describe the basic surface color of our model. So how we want to connect this to our material is that since we want all 3 channels, RGB channel, we drag it and we plug it into base color. That's great. Save. And now if we look inside our level, and oh wow, look, our fountain now has color. So base color gives everything a color. That's great. It still looks a little plain to me. It also has preview on it. That's fine. It's because we turn off live preview. That's okay. So okay, this still looks a little plain to me. I wanted to have a little more texture. You know, what if I want this to be a very fleshy fountain? We want it to have like bumps on it and make it look a little organic, a little more organic. All right. So one way we can do that is that we have here what is called a normal map. Observe the name, default material normal map. So what normal map describes is how the light interacts with the surface of the material. All right, drag it from RGB, plug it into normal. Let's see how that will affect this material. Look. All right. Wow, look. Now we have all these bumps that weren't there before. And notice we haven't actually changed the model, so these bumps are described strictly by the normal map, such that the light hits on it, the normal map tells it how it should behave. Oh, like, is this bump? Is this a, I don't know, valley, whatsoever. So now it looks a little more interesting. We have bumps on our model. And there are other things we can do with materials as well. So here we have a compact map. If we look in their name, we see this is called material, occlusion, roughness, metallic. Okay, that's 3 things. This is one way you can optimize your materials inside of Unreal, because these 3 maps, occlusion map, roughness map, and metallic map, they're both described, like if you were to export them into 3 different maps, they will all just be of black and white because they have a value between like 0 and 1, and that describes how say how rough the surface looks. And so you can so if it's a value between 0 and 1, what this map is doing is that basically it's taking these 3 values and they're just putting them into the 3 channels. They're putting them into the RGB channel of one picture and they're just sliding them together. If what I just said made like absolutely no sense to you, don't need to worry. This is something you can do. Like usually whatever you're making your materials in, this will do with it for you if they know you're exporting into Unreal. So I'll tell you guys very quickly what these 3 maps are. So occlusion map describes how the light should interact with the surface, but different from the normal map. The occlusion map sort of describes like how lit the surface is in respect with itself. So say for example, let me think what's a good example. It mostly describes like self-shadowing, if that makes any sense. And then roughness map, like its name, describes how rough the surface is. But note that roughness inside, when you're talking about materials, think of it on a scale as being very rough in a sense. It's like sandpaper, to very plasticky. So that's the rough to smooth scale. It's actually from rough to how plasticky and reflective it looks. And metallic is how metallic it looks. So the difference between roughness and metallic is that if you think about you running after a summer day, your skin will be very like reflective, but it will never look metallic. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's just something to keep in mind. So how do we put these 3 materials packed inside one map into our current material? Well, so these 3 materials are put inside their channel with respect to their name. So like like, so when we talk about colors, we go like RGB, right? And this goes like, oh, occlusion, roughness, metallic. So occlusion is in the red channel, roughness is in the blue channel, metallic is in the green channel. I mean, sorry, the occlusion is in the red channel, the roughness is in the green channel, and the metallic is in the blue channel. There we go. All right, so let's just plug them in. Occlusion, ambient occlusion, and roughness. And I don't think there's actually anything inside the metallic map. Let's just put it in anyway. Save it. Wait for Unreal to compile because materials usually take a while to compile. And now look, when we're inside our level, notice how our model looks a little different than before. Right now it looks like, oh no, it looks like it's almost like moist. It looks like it's like kind of glistening. Like you can see how light is reflecting out off it, you know. So that means we've A, successfully imported our material, B, we have a much more interesting asset now. And one thing that we might want to, I will also introduce to you is the collision mass of an object. So notice we have our object here, but when I'm trying to walk towards it, there's like this little piece of space that I can't walk past through. So why is that? Why is that happening? I'll show you guys what's happening. So if we click into show on the top left corner of your viewport, we can see one of the options is collision. Aha. Oh, actually, it doesn't show when you're inside here. All right, so now if we look at it, we see all these like lines describing that's the collision mass of our objects. So that is how the engine will know if our objects are overlapping with each other. And if we look at our model here, we notice like, I'm trying to get a good angle on this. We notice how like, you know, there are some parts where the collision mass, because the collision mass is calculated by the engine, so it's a rough estimate from what the engine knows. The collision mass does not like closely match the actual shape of the model, and maybe we don't want that. Maybe we want to like, you know, go under the model and like sit there or something. So how to solve this? Well, how to solve it is that we click into our object that we just imported, not the material, the object, the fountain model. Alright, cool. So notice now it is here. We can show the collision again. So okay, actually this would be a good time. So notice how there's simple collision. If I show it, this is pretty much what you just saw in the level of where we can collide and where we cannot. We can also show complex collision, which is, well, obviously a more complex way how a collision works. And we observe that a complex collision is much more like closely aligned with the surface material. And how, say if we want to use the complex collision, say we want to use the complex collision, how we will do that is that we'll go onto the side, inside details, we can search collision, I think that will work. We bring up the collisions tab. And notice here, it says collision complexity. Right now it says project default. What we want is that we want to use the complex collision as the simple collision. So the simple collision is what we will be interacting inside the game. So if we switch that, save it. And right now, if I go inside my player mode again, and look, I can like go face to face with it. The invisible bond has like sort of disappeared. So that's something really useful if you're inputting something slightly more complex like mesh, and you want your character to be interacting normally with it. This is something you want to do to make sure everything works as planned. And that is my portion of the presentation. Up next, you will have Matthew to tell you about blueprints. It's going to be fun. Also, we want to give them time to rest. I think it's fine. We'll rest after Matthew talks about blueprints, maybe.
Yes. Rest and meditate upon your new skills after this. We'll give you guys a break. 1 second to get set up. So I guess I go into my map, right?
Yeah.
Alright.
Also, I don't know.
saving. This is that thing Joyce just mentioned some minutes ago, is that you import things in and you don't save. You save current, but you don't save other things. When you're switching maps, you'll be prompted to change things up. All right, let's start. Okay, here we are. So let's okay, our collisions are off. So I'm going to teach you is now remember how in Joyce's map you have this guy right here, our third person character. However, it's sometimes not convenient to operate out of a third person character all the time. So what you want to instead do is use the player start. So you'd want to go into blueprints, game mode. You're going to want to create a new game mode deriving from game mode, the original game mode. And let's put this in quick and dirty right here. So what are we going to call it? We're going to call it tutorial game mode because we're not following any naming conventions. And when I look back at this next year, I'm going to not know what happened. Okay, let's also close these things. Put this on the monitor. Okay, so here we are. We're going to go into our. Okay, so you don't want to. I'm going to say that you don't want to worry about anything, and you see here except what's in this classes thing. Because I don't worry about anything except what's in this classes thing, and it sounds like a kind of a cliche thing to say, but you don't need to worry about it like at all. So you're going to go and change this default pawn class to our blueprint that we're dealing with. So we're going to want to deal with third-person character. We want the third-person character to spawn. But there is no third-person character. But aha! There is a player start. Player start is normally included in the map by default. But if it's not, what you can do is just type in player start right here. Just drag it in. Okay, we don't need to, so we'll delete it. Okay, so now if we press play, look at that. Our guy spawned in. Now we can do what we normally do. Okay, perfect. So, let's get to work. Let's get to blueprints. This is blueprints. Quick and dirty, third person EP, blueprints, third person character. Alright. My god, what are we looking at? Well, let's cancel that. Okay, so what we're looking at is the blueprint. Okay, let's start from the most pressing things. We have our components window, our blueprints window, and a details panel. This details panel operates exactly the same way as this details panel here. Identical, except maybe it'll offer more details. So, let's close this. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to give you an example of what a component is. Everything you see here is a component. If you're coming from Unity, if I remember correctly, what Unity did was you have your thing right here. Say you have your, I don't know, player, first person player. And you would have the option of making, there would be like a button here which is like add component or something, or add script. So you would add your script like, no, you would add your mesh. So here's my mesh, like, I don't know, skeletal mesh, how do you spell it? Mesh. And then you'll add your script, you know, move, script. What we do, instead in Unreal Engine, is we have our own dedicated window for these things. So what we have is our collider, which is normally, this is basically the same structure as you would in Unity, but it's it's in a different window. And then we have our arrow component, that's this thing. It's making us, it's basically what's in front of our character is this arrow. Our mesh, which is this skeletal mesh here, it's highlighted in yellow. Our camera boom is the stick, and the follow camera, which is just a regular camera. Now, what is a camera? What is a camera boom? You know those things like they have in movies, like they have a microphone boom, boom, something like that. Same thing. And now, what if you want to put in a new component? Well, there's a lot of components. We have audio components, chaos destruction listener. I have no clue what that is. There's a lot of things in this engine that like. It's such a big engine, we don't know what's what sometimes. But let's just bring in a cube. Ta-da! Cube. Now this cube, it's going to be in our capsule component. So it's inside it. So now we're going to go, and let me show you how this would look in character. Whatever we change in blueprints, let's actually not use the player set. Let's use this regularly. So we got to set up the inputs real quick. I want to set this to receive player 0 because that's us. I want to set auto possess player to be true. So whatever we change in the blueprints gets reflected. So if we don't want this cube, let's say compile and save. Cube ain't gonna be there anymore. But for the purpose of demonstration, let's talk cube. Alright, here's a cube. Cube is in us. Cube is in us because it's inside the capsule collision. Alright? We can put the cube on the camera boom, and then we can move it away from the camera, like that. So now the cube is behind us, and we don't see it. So that was stupid. But we can instead, make it smaller. Yes, to make that smaller, you press your R key for scale. That's this thing right here. Oh yeah, Larry's right. It's a spring. This is a spring arm. We can press E to rotate this, and we can press W to just move this, move mode. And now it's in our way. Pretty good demonstration. Now it's inside our character. Okay, perfect. Now, let's go into the nitty-gritty and start working. So as I explained before, third-person character has a parent class character. A parent class character is other classes. So let me give you an example. This is our object, and everything here derives from object. Our camera derives from actor, but the object is the father of everything. Okay, and then from here you could not a level. You can go into blueprints and say, okay, I want an actor. But what is an actor? Suppose you want to pick something up on the floor. I don't know. There's a can. You want to add it to your inventory. The can will be an object. A pawn is going to be that little character over there. It can also be a character. The difference between a pawn and a character is that a character can also be... And a character has more movement controls. So, for example, we have character movement component, which basically handles a lot of our walking and jumping physics. Whereas a pawn, I spawn one in right now, isn't going to have that. So, some pawn. You see, we don't have it, but we'll be able to control it. Okay, let's delete that pawn. Alright, let's go into our third person character. Now, in here, it's going to look a little bit different from what you have, but that's okay. That's okay. There's not going to be, like over here, there was a lot of garbage about VR setups and stuff like that. Useless stuff for our purpose. There was also a jump. a jump mechanic, but I'm gonna teach you how to do our own jump, the GCS jump. All right. So you'll notice in the project settings, in inputs, where does input live? Input lives in engine. Okay, that we have axis mappings, and we have action mappings. So we're interested in both of these to move our character around. Axis mapping gives you a 0 to 1 or a 0 to -1 value. Space, like a jump normal buttons, just give you, either it was pressed or it was not. Logic. So we want jump. Okay, let's bring jump in. So what we're gonna do is right click, and oh my god, this is really scary. Ooh. It's not. Calm down. Deep breaths. You're going to write this. You're going to write input action. And that's going to give us these action events here. You can click jump. Alternatively, you can write jump, because I like to sometimes just type in whatever it's called. You're going to type it correctly. And you're going to have a lot of other stuff here. But you can also just have, we also click jump through here. Doesn't matter which overtake, they're the same thing. So then we're going to go look for something. We want to do something. Let's just have a simple jump for now. I'm going to press the space bar, and we're just going to launch the character. We're going to launch him up on the Z axis, because in Unreal Engine, Z is up. See right here. And if you're an artist and you're 3D modeling, Z is up for you. Okay. What's a number? Anyone have a suggested number for how much velocity we're going to throw on this guy? It doesn't matter. Just if you have anything you want to add to it. Any volunteers for any numbers? Okay. We have in our example as a 420. There could be a joke in there. There could not be. I don't know. Or this could have been like one of those, I need a number at 3 in the morning. Okay, so we're going to override our Z, because we want to just go up, and we don't care no matter where we are, what our velocity is. We're going to go up. And what happens when we press? So let's try this out. Hooray, we can jump. Well, we can keep pressing it, we'll go flying. That's not good enough, though. What we need to do is use the default function that just says stop jumping. Why is it called that? Because it doesn't let you keep jumping. Okay, that's a bad one. What you need to do next is keep going. We're going to build a double jump. So we're going to look for something called an event on landed. This is one of those character things that Unreal Engine built for us back when they were making their own game. Epic made. So event on landed, can you guess what it does? It runs whenever we land, whenever we are surfaced. Okay. Now why are we using event on landed? Because we're going to add a mechanic to our jump. Now we want to do a do n times, but oh no, it's not there. Okay, it's here. But let's just pretend that we can't find it, right? What is a do n? It's inherently in programming a control flow. Meaning, what's a control flow? Like a branch, like a for loop. It controls the flow of the code. So we're gonna go into here. Where is it? Let's try this again and see. It's called flow control. Once you get these things, you will likely never use this feat. You won't need to go through these a lot of times. So let's show you how to do it manually. Okay, this is in flow control. Why wasn't it even there? Flow. It's
Maybe flow control is a subgroup in and of itself.
yes, Ryan. Okay. Whatever. Do N. You won't find it. You can find it yourself on your own time. Do N. Okay. What is it part of? It's in the utilities. It was under utilities this whole time. What you can do is go to utilities, go to flow control. We have our branches and flip-flops and for loops and all these weird things. We want a do N. Can you guess what a do N does? It allows exec to pass, exec being this thing, and time. So we want it to only go through twice. Okay, now it comes to here. Exec flows through here into something called a switch. If you're unfamiliar with switches, think of it like a glorified if-else statement. Except it makes your code look prettier. And now our counter is going to go through here. So we're going to go from 0 and 1, 2. Now, why are we doing this? Because we forgot that we're in programming and computers, things start from 0, not from 1. So, as a result, we're just going to skip over 0. We could also just remove that pin and make this a 1. But it doesn't matter ultimately. So what we want to do is launch the character like that. And that should be it in theory. That's why we had to. Okay, but notice that you can't jump anymore more than once. So at least that's a step in the right direction. So let's fix that little bug. So that's why you did it. Okay. There we go. We have a double jump. Hooray. Okay. Now let's just say you want to make a sound like they did in the old PC games back in the day when you jump. So you want to import a sound, right? So you go into your, let me find the sound to import. Okay. Here's my download folder. You want to import it MP3, right? Let's just import the Quake jump sound effect. But oh no, it's not there. We cannot play this sound. The reason why we cannot play this sound is because Unreal Engine doesn't take MP3s, it takes WAVs. So you're gonna go into your Audacity, and you're going to convert it. But we have it already converted, so let me get it on my desktop. So we have our sound effect right here. And I'm not sure if I'm sharing my sound, but yeah, I don't think I'm sharing my sound, but maybe you'll be able to hear it through my microphone. That's our jump sound effect. So, we want to play the jump sound effect. Instead, what we're going to do is put it here. Play sound at location. Okay, easy. We'll hook this up here. I want to do a quick sound effect. And, okay, problem. Location. Where are we going to play this? Well, easy. We're going to play it where the character is. Well, how do we know where the character is? Easy. We being in character, we have some, in a class defined from character, we can get functions and variables from our parent, being a regular character. So we're going to get, the character is an actor. it was derived from an actor. So we're gonna get actor location right there. We're gonna put this right here. So no matter where we are, this sound is gonna play right on us. And then we'll launch the character upwards. Alright, perfect. We got sound now. Now, I need to show you how to do variables. Variables are pretty important because your program. So let's use the dash as an example. We're going to write the dash function right now. Oh, well, the event dash. So let's make a boolean called can dash. The syntax, programming syntax for variables in Unreal Engine is normally camel case. Not camel, Pascal case, meaning this. So Pascal, something like that, case. Whereas in Carnegie Mellon we use camel case, I believe. Camel case. Okay. So we can dash. That's a boolean. Why do we know it's a boolean? When we look at it, it's red, so that's a bool. Say we don't want this to be bool. We can make it an integer. And then we compile, and this turns into an integer thing. Okay, let's make this a 0.1. We can't because it's an integer. So instead we'll make it 1, and that'll work. But we don't want it to be an integer. We want it to be a boolean value. Okay. Now we want to get the boolean value, and by default we want to have this as true. I like that it converted it to true for me. And we're going to control click and drag this over here, and that's going to get the variable. That's going to get us the variable. Now we're going to press the B key and click. Alright, we have now clicked. Perfect. Now I'm going to go over here and put this into here. This takes a boolean, and this over here is a boolean. Now we go over here and drag into press. Okay, so earlier I put a sound in. So let's play a sound when we press this button. So if we can dash, we're going to play a sound. And we're going really fast, so let's play the gas, gas, gas by Initial D. Okay. And mechanically, it's very similar. We just launch the character. And we're over here now. So we launch the character, but in the direction of where they are. So we don't need to launch them up. We got to launch them to where the camera is. So we're going to go control click this camera, or we can just drag it. Yeah, that'll work just fine. If you don't drag boolean like regular variables here, like for example this float, we'll just ask you if you want to get or set. Set looks like this, and so you'll have like, let's say I want this to be 2. And then I'll put this into an exact node like this, and then I'll set this base lookup rate to 2.0. Okay. Okay, let's get follow camera, get forward vector, basically where we're looking at in respect to the camera. And then we'll multiply this by a ridiculous amount, probably like 20,000. So we're going to do 20, 1, 2, 3. And then we'll put this into launch velocity. We're going to delay it for a little bit. The delay basically just stops whatever we're doing when we hit this for a certain amount of time. So we're going to delay for 0.05, and then immediately, it's pretty quick, and then immediately stop movement. What this does is it kills our velocity, because what we did is just launched, set our, whatever velocity we were going at now, we just added to it. We just threw our character forward, or wherever, and now we gotta stop him, because otherwise we'll keep going. So now we gotta set our can dash, because we can no longer dash for the time being, because otherwise we can spam it, and that's abuse. We don't like abuse as game developers, unless it's intentional. Then we love it. That can be taken out of context. Okay, so now we can set can dash. Okay, and that's our dash feature. Okay. Now I think you can see a problem here. Okay, it's, imagine this. It's 4 in the morning, beta's tomorrow, and you haven't looked at this all week because you've had tests or stuff, okay? So you don't know what's what. To prevent that from happening, we comment. So you're going to drag whatever the block of stuff you want to comment, and you just press C. And then a comment appears in this whole thing. So what's this? This is a jump. So we're going to, but this is a double jump. So we're going to say double jump. And you can add stuff to it. Like, you want to double click it, you want to change, so like double jump makes you jump twice. Increase the font to something stupid, or we can increase it to something normal. We can also change the color, like that. C, you can't do that in C. The advantages of blueprints. And we're going to make this a dash. You can also just comment other things. You can just like click this and just say, this is a branch. Launch it and stop. Easy. Okay. But now up until this point, everything you've been seeing here, here.
Sorry, I'm trying to turn the lights off.
Let's see. Everywhere here is basically all event driven. What if we want to make a function? Because events are nice, but functions are cleaner. What we can do is literally this. Say we want this can dash to be here, because we don't want the function to deal with that. We can take this, right click, collapse the function. Oh, we can't collapse the function. I know why. Yeah, I know why. Okay. Can't collapse the function because of this here. Now we should be able to collapse the function. Huh. Let's try making this.
You can collapse the macro, but you can't collapse delays.
Oh, right.
Functions can have delays. Yeah.
I forget that. Okay, so we can just... Wait, we have F. What do you went over an F? Let's make an F. We don't have it here, but we'll have it here. Okay. Respect. F. You can write keyboard, and I'll give you a keyboard, or you can write F. And I'll give you a bunch of Fs. Okay. So now we're gonna go into here, type in respect, and we're gonna make a new function called some like respect thing, and it's going to take in an input, and it's going to give us, we want it to get a Boolean input, so we're going to say can respect, and this input will, this output will output if we can respect or not. So decision, I think that's how you spell it. All right. So let's do some logic here. I don't know. So we're going to take this in. Let's show you how a flip-flop works. What is a flip-flop? This decides if something is going to go either here or here. So if we do this, say put branch, put can respect. Also, this is kind of ugly. We're going to do that. If this is still ugly for you, there's a plugin in the Unreal Engine store called Electric Nodes, and it makes things less ugly and look a lot pretty. So if we can respect, we'll say true, and the decision is yes, we do respect. However, if we respected before, I believe that will can you say no, we do not respect. Okay, so let's hook this up and as respects. And can we respect? Yes, but do we decide to respect? That's something else. Also, we should probably hook the result up into something called a print statement so we can see what we're doing. So print string, decision goes into here, but these aren't the same type, so we can convert the boolean to a string. Okay, here goes nothing. We press play, we press F, true, we press F again, true. This didn't work. Why didn't it work? I don't know. But we can visualize this. So what we do is right click, toggle a breakpoint. What the hell is that? This, my friends, is your introduction to debugging. Okay, really simple stuff. A breakpoint basically stops the flow of control once it hits here and brings your attention to it. Okay. So now what we're going to do is, I believe we just press play and press F. Yep, see, it just brought us straight into here. Perfect. That's what we want. So now what we can do is we can either resume or skip the frame, which means we go into the next node. Or we can step into if this is a function, or we can step over once again to go into the next node. Okay. Step into. Now we're inside our function. Okay, what's going on here? Alright. Looks fine. Frame skip. Step over. We don't want to step into this because this is likely a macro. So we're fine. Fine. Okay, that's expected. And now we print. Okay, we're done. So we press F again. And now we're back here. We step into this. And we accidentally stepped into this. When we accidentally step into things, we can step out. Step out. Interesting. And then we go and step over, and this gives us back here. Okay, let's stop. Okay, what's the problem? The problem, what I think is, it's just the wrong thing to do, I think. Is that this thing just doesn't belong here, you know? We can massively, because I believe it doesn't belong. Let's try this. Let's remove this, Control X, and let's simplify this to be this. And then we'll just have something simple, something stupidly simple, such as this. Okay. Baby's first function. And then we can instead put the flip-flop. You can put the flip-flop here, I think. And in theory, this should do it. If we're B, we're going to not. Now we're going to bring this in
You
here.
can hook both in. You can just hook both in A and B to the respects, and then just push the boolean is A into can't respect, right?
Oh yeah, that's definitely, yeah, that's better. Yeah, thank you, Larry. And blueprints is a little bit lacking because I don't use much of it anymore. Okay, flip-flops. Alright, so now we try this again. Let's actually pause this breakpoint. So we're going to toggle it. That's going to go away. Okay. F, false. C, can't respect. No, no, no. Okay. So what do we have here? We have send, and we have dash. Okay. Perfect. So respects. Now let's make this something fun. How about a classic game of floor is lava? But this is high stakes. If you touch the floor, you die. So how can we make something that kills you pretty easily? Really simple. Something called a kill Z volume. The idea behind a kill Z volume is simple. You walk down here, you die. Well, it kills whatever it touches. It's like disease, bubonic plague, that kind of disease, except instant. So we can do is make this volume potentially visible, or maybe not, but we can go into our show and collision. No, it's not collision. Alright, that's good enough. Okay. Oh, I think we call this. Okay, well we know that something's here, so we go into it, we die. Okay, so now it's there. That's good. Okay, so let's put this thing into the floor. Everywhere here. That's the floor. Okay. Now we're going to browse to our character. And we're going to go and click this capsule component here, because capsule component knows whenever it gets touched. So let's do on component begin overlap. We're going to go here. We're going to see who is touching us. So this case is going to be a kill Z volume. So we're going to cast to the kill Z volume. Cast to the kill Z volume. Okay. Now how do we know if it's working? If it's working, it wouldn't fail, right? So in print real quick. Hello. We go in. Hello gets printed. Why didn't we die? We didn't die. I don't know why. Why did we die? Okay, now we died. Okay, must have been in the floor. So we need to make it play a sound for us to feel ashamed of ourselves for going onto the lava. What we're gonna do is, if we are at the kill Z volume, because if we're not gonna do anything. The cast is gonna fail. We're going to play sound at location. It doesn't matter where it's gonna be played because we'll hear it. So we just go aw. Okay. And now to make it more fun, let's I don't know, throw in some cubes. This. We can alt and click and drag this here. Maybe this is possible. Like this. Put this upside down. Like that. Have some nice obstacles. Maybe. Yes, like this. Okay. Working as intended. What happened? Is our collisions fine? Oh, I just moved this up. Okay. Ta-da! Okay. I can't reach it. Oh yeah. Let's try and reach it. Lower my volume. There we go. That's our game for now. I think I'm gonna pass the baton now because my job here is done to Larry. He's gonna show us some more interesting things. Wait, actually.
Dude, we're kind of over time. We've been here for an hour and a half.
Tutorial, first character, let me just share a second screen. Yeah.
Let's just let Larry do it.
Hi, people see? Check. Sorry, can people see can people see my screen?
Yeah, we can.
I'll make sure. All right. Just gonna quickly go over UI. It's been getting a little long. So although I do want to quickly go explain several things. For people who do want to make double jump and do want to take advantage of some of like the in-character features, yeah. Should we just keep going? Uh, yeah, I just want to quickly like just mention a few things. In the character blueprint specifically, since like a lot of like the third person character you get by default the third person map, or like any like child of character you'll notice has a several like these uh has a several parameters that come from the character C++ class. And so this is somewhere where you can, if you choose to implement double jump by changing your jump max count to 2. This is one way you could go about it. And then when you do jump, use the character's jump functions and stop jumping rather than implement your own. That's one other way you can do it. If you don't want to like have full control, this could be another option. And then like character movement is integrated with the character by allowing you to change things like the jump speed and like max height. This is another option to go about if you want it. I just want to quickly mention that in case people want to implement it another way in their own games. Anyways, I'm going to go over to find my widget that I made. It's it could take a while if I had to build it from scratch. So let's see. Why is my okay? That's weird. Sometimes the content browser gets a little wacky. Also, this is a quick content browser trick. If you need to find something and you have like, let's say like our project right now has a really bad like file system. Really, it should be a better one where like, you have clear like place for blueprints and clear places for your like meshes. But since this is like a tutorial, we haven't really focused on that. But in the case that you are struggling to find something in a larger project, you can take advantage of this filters feature, especially at like the top level content folder, and then just like if there's not that many like of the same type, you can just like click on like let's say user interface. You notice the only user interface is this like widget. This is the one I made. So here's a quick way to find it. I should also mention you can make user widgets similar to blueprints, but they're under the user interface tab. Similarly, you can also make them over here, user interface. Just quick notes for how you can get yourself a widget blueprint. Widgets are split into 2 parts. Unlike it's similar to your actor, to like your normal blueprints, like for like that extend from actor, where you have like the viewport on one side in one tab, and then the actual blueprints in another. But over here, it's instead of like these tabs, it's like a fully different separate menu. So it does there are certain changes. But you do also have an event graph and a lot of similarities. You could just about a lot of blueprints things carry over. Some of your functions obviously won't be the same because the blueprints obviously don't extend from like the same base class. So for making UIs, you've got this is basically the UI version of your components menu where you can drag and drop them into things depending on like layout. It'll by default when you make a widget, it will only have this canvas panel, which is generally your main choice for like your like I guess upper level panel or layout thing. Simply because it does it via an anchor system. Like all the children are done in an anchor, so you have the most flexibility with where things are placed, which is why it's pretty good for HUDs and main menus. You generally want to probably use a canvas panel. There are other panels. Panels are for like very large scale layouts that you can see like from like how it like these are shown. Like a grid panel obviously will make a grid of things, or like these uniform or grid which are probably like good depending on like what kind of UI you want to make. Like I imagine if you were using uniform grid, you could probably make a good inventory system. But these are just like panels that are like top level. For the most part, you'll probably be using canvas panels. So, and you probably won't need like a panel and a panel either. So generally, I'll just use as your top level. And that's to keep it simple. It's just have it. If it'll give you one anyways, and so just use that. Afterwards, you can drop stuff in there of you can drop like basically anything can go into the panel, which is kind of nice. You can directly drop a button in here if you want. I generally like to wrap my stuff in layout boxes though, because these layout boxes give you some control over how things display. This becomes a little more apparent if your game like let's say like you expect your game to be played on like different platforms and stuff, because like you can see I can simulate resizing the screen if like, because even if it looks good in editor, especially like once you like actually like make your game into an executable, you can't really trust what's shown in here because your game not necessarily have this resolution. And so this is basically which is why it's often good to use these layout tools. I do have a scale box here. You may not need to use a scale box. I like to use them at times for stuff, but that's kind of an advanced thing just for certain layout things. You can look into those if you want yourself, but the main thing you want to know here is there's this horizontal box. As you can see, everything placed in this box is arranged horizontally in the order placed into them. If I move the button up, it sometimes thinks I'm trying to rename stuff. It will, as you see, it goes above the spacer now. And so now the spacer goes afterwards. But I want the spacer in between so it looks good. It's a little hard to drag with this thing. I believe you can also use these arrows, which can be easier than trying to drag and drop if you want. Let's see. So aside from the horizontal box, you also have the vertical box, and there are several others, but vertical box and as well as overlay. I think those are probably your three most likely to use types of like layout boxes you'll be using inside of your UIs. Here I do have an overlay. Allows me to put like this health meter in the background, which is basically a type of progress bar. You can see I can drag and adjust it. This allows you to preview like certain like values. I'm going to be setting this value via functions later, so it doesn't really matter what value it has in here, but it's nice for you to like just look at how it is. Of course, you could in theory, I guess, just set it somewhere here just for like a aesthetic effect if you don't actually need to adjust it. But generally, this is mostly just for previewing if you plan on like setting it. And here I've got like a text box on top, and this is how you can see how like the overlay works. You can put widgets on top of widgets, and so they'll occupy the same spot, but they'll also like be within this overlay, so the overlay will control like the layout when I do things like resize and stuff. I won't get too much into anchors. That could take some understanding. If you've used anchors before, this is pretty intuitive. They're I think they're pretty similar with like Unity and other things that have used anchors. Basically, you use anchors to tell the UI elements how to offset themselves relative to where the anchors are. And one other thing is alignment. Normally the alignment by default is 0, 0. This will cause it to align to the top left corner. You might not want that, so you can adjust these to adjust the relative corner alignment. So I change this to 0.5. It'll align it along the middle. Makes sense, I think. All right. So several things I think we want to get into is buttons. This button has like several different like events you can bind to it. You can do it over here or find the button over here to bind it. So if I go back here, click on clicked, it's generally what you're going to use. Then I can use it to call, let's say in this case, we've got a certain character. If you want to, I should also disable the filters, which you don't need them anymore. Turn them off. We've got a character in here that we were using for this map, so I'm just going to pull this character back up. it happens to have a function called add health. So what I can do over here is back over in my tutorial widget is get player. Let's see, get player pawn. Yeah, this is one way to go about it. This basically allows me, the character is a subclass of pawn, so if I get the pawn, I can just cast it to a character. As long as your game is like a single player game as well, you don't need to worry about the player index because the player will always be at player index 0. So often you can just drag and drop these out as is. The other class is called BP character, so I cast it over to that. Kind of like how Matthew was casting the Kill Z volume. This is just tells the I guess the computer that this is you want the functions of this specific type. Yeah, basically, for the reference, you want this type of functions. I want, yeah, stuff. What was it called again? Add health. So we pull out add health, call a function. Let's say you get 10 health every time you you click on the button. So with that, you basically can get health. Over here, like that health thing does a very simple, adds the value you push into the function with the current health. Your health, set it like 580 out of like 1000. Anyways, and okay, I'll get into that. So the tutorial widget, back on tutorial widget, I already made a function for responding to basically on health changing. So basically what the goal of this function does is basically updates this bar and this text box to show the health. To basically like show your like health, which is I guess a pretty common feature in games, which is why I'm gonna show it here. You may see tutorials that use create binding. You can use it. It's not like illegal to use, but using create binding, if I like do choose to click it, will create this function that basically gets run on every frame. Generally, this is not advised. It's not efficient to have something that runs on every frame. I could then like do the get player character and then get health and then push it into here. It will work. I don't suggest it because unless you really need something to update on a per frame basis, it's just not you can often just do it with a function, and it's not much harder to do via a function, via like your own function. All it does requires that the character actually keeps track of the like this widget it makes, but that's generally not like hard to just like make a variable for the widget and then keep track of it. I'll show that later. Anyways, I just wanted to say you may see tutorials that use the binding. You can use the binding. And if for some things, if you really need to update on a per frame basis, go ahead. It's just not my preferred style. I don't think it's also not efficient. There's like good reasons not to use it. You just remove binding. Only thing is after you remove the binding, you also have to remove the function if you don't like it because it doesn't remove the function for you. You can go over here, delete. There we go. So we've gone over the buttons and this function. As you can see, this function, what we're going to do is like instead of using the binding to set it, we're going to take in the values instead of like using the binding where it requests the values every tick. We're going to push the values in to this function and then have the function set these the values of these UI elements. I should also note that text boxes like the one here by default do not show up as variables on this side, which can be kind of annoying if you like are looking for it and you can't find it. So remember to click is variable if you need to access a text box or certain other elements in the on the graph side of your UI. This also is the case for like these boxes because a lot of these are just for layout. You don't normally need to access them because if you designed your thing right, you probably won't need to ever access them in the graph side. But sometimes you might want to do something wacky with your UI or like dynamically add or remove stuff. Then you'll actually care to have it as a variable. So that's just one thing is that I did make this a variable so I could access it and set its text. Pretty easy, right? You drag over, it'll convert the float to text, just like Matthew did for the Boolean to string. this does, you can similarly cast them over. Right. Save. So similarly, you see over here, I'm just gonna get rid of this. I was gonna redo this again, but this is pretty simple anyways to like understand. I could just grab my widget. In the context, it would have just been on health changed, and you can find the function. It'll pop this out, and then you can plug your variables over in. So over in the event graph, you do need to do one step. This is probably the most important step when you're doing widgets, is that you actually add them to your viewport, because if you don't do that, it's kind of hard to see them. They don't like actually exist yet. So a good place to do that is in event begin play. When you make this event, we can go ahead and create widget. Find our widget, tutorial widget. This value, we can I just drag from here, set to widget. This, yeah, I just created from, actually let me, no, I can't delete it right now, but you could drag this out and promote to variable. That's probably the easiest way, because then it will be of the type of the tutorial widget type, so then you don't have to do any casting to call this function. Or you can also just make the variable and search up the tutorial widget in like the variables side, like go over here, and then you would have to go like search up tutorial widget, but that could take a while, and then grab object reference. Either way, now you have a reference to tutorial widget made. Generally, I would do this in begin play, because especially if you need to like keep track of it, because then like you won't have like on another, like if in another thing in the environment changes your character's health, it won't suddenly like look for the tutorial widget and find that it doesn't exist yet. That would cause problems. So this is another reason why it's good idea to do in begin play. After you've made it, just add to viewport. And that's all you need to do to add it to the viewport, and you now also have a reference to it, which you can use in the function over here. I think that should be about it. We pop into the map that I'm using for this. This is a version of similar to the other maps. We also have another volume over here that basically also adds health. We can also set it to do damage. Actually, let's set it to like -20 to do damage. Can I set it? Yeah, I can set it. Okay, I'll get into that later. But for now, we get in here. Our character. That's one thing I need to do. Sorry. I also need to. One thing is that, like I said, is that since I don't use the binding, I do need to remember to like initially set the values, which I can do in a lot of different ways. But I'm just going to use what was it? That was called on health change. That's right. I can't just call the function, because in that function it updated the widgets. I'll just update it with our current values for max and this health. All right, got this put together, and so what this will do is just when it starts, it'll just initialize the values. And so you see 580, the whole bar would be like 1000 full division, and you see that thing's just a bit past half, as you'd expect. So if I hit the button, get health, I walk into this, it takes away health. Yeah. So I'll go explain that box next. This box is kind of similar to the kill box that Matthew made, but instead of killing people, it just hurts people. So this thing just has a collision volume. You can just make it via an actor. Just make a basic actor, add like a box collision, and you basically have that. What we've done is basically just turned off hidden in game. By default, they're hidden in game, and made it a little thicker. That's just so you can see it. So when you walk into it, you get hurt. We've done it over here, the on begin overlap. You could choose to do it in a. You could choose to have the health volume apply the health change as well, but we've done it over here. So basically, you can just see that when we overlap and it checks that it's a health volume. If it is, we'll take the value that it keeps track of that I set to like -20 in the environment, and it'll add the health. It'll just add that health to the character. So in the case -20, it takes damage. And so since I put the widget at the end of the add health thing, at any point anyone calls the add health function, whether positive or negative, it'll just remember to also always update the widgets over here. So yeah, I think I showed everything. One quick thing though is that if you didn't notice, I was able to, if while you're in the game with like when you're like playing the game, sometimes it'll like lock your mouse, especially for like the things with like the third person character where you might not want to see your mouse when you're moving around. We have added the following piece just to basically toggle the input mode into allows game and UI and shows the mouse cursor. This allows you to actually like interact with the UI. While like this would be like if you hit the P and like the pause or whatever pause key you use in your game. This would be like a way to implement basically like toggle your pause menu. And so this would allow you to get your you would probably like show your UI here at this point as well. And now that you can actually like use your mouse in a UI setting, this would be like the side you would want it on. And then likewise, when you toggle off the UI, you'd set it back to game only and then hide the cursor. So this is just a quick bit that it's a little complicated. I wouldn't like if you don't remember this, I mean you can pick it up back up later. I'm just trying to really just like show that you can set events on the button, and so that's the only way I can really get you to click it with the third person character. And so basically, yeah, can take damage, get more health, and I think that's about it for UI. I want to quickly mention that setting the value here in something that's placed in the world technically does not change its value in the actual blueprint, because the ones placed in here are technically instances of the blueprint, which is kind of why they're called blueprints, because they're kind of more like they're like analogous to prefabs, except they're not in like Unity. But basically, like they're like the blueprint of something that once you place in here, then you can also make additional modifications to variables that exist here, as long as the variable is as long as the variable is instance editable. So that's just one thing to know, is that like when you make changes to like the actors in the world map, this will not change their blueprint. Although these aren't exactly blueprints, but like I guess our we don't actually have any blueprints aside from this one in here. But anyways, like changes to this one won't be reflected into the original blueprint. That's basically what I want to get at. So I think that's everything for UI that I wanted to explain.
Thank you for the people that stuck with us this whole way. It's a very long presentation, we know.
Yeah, and it was a lot to take in.